Hey, what's up? Jeff Ratcliffe here. The 2018 Chicago Bears looked very different under Matt Nagy than the previous season under John Fox, and we saw some big-time fantasy potential. So what's the fantasy outlook for the Bears this year? Let's preview for 2019 fantasy football, the Chicago Bears. And let's start at the running back position because, hey, Jordan Howard's out. He's in Philly now. Jordan Howard was a bit of a fantasy disappointment last year. Really didn't fit the system because he's not a guy who catches the ball out of the backfield. Consequently, we saw Tarik Cohen catch 71 balls on the season. But the Bears may have addressed the running back position in the offseason, well, with two additions in particular. They brought in Mike Davis as a free agent, but they drafted David Montgomery. Now, of those two, the guy who clearly stands out to me is David Montgomery. Based on what he was able to do last year, he led the nation in forced missed tackles with a massive 99 of them. Now, if you watched David Montgomery play, you'll know his offensive line maybe wasn't the best in the nation, but still the fact of the matter was he showed the ability to make defenders miss. That is an important factor in fantasy production at the pro level. These guys, hey, they have to be able to make defenders miss. Montgomery knows how to do that. He also knows how to catch the ball out of the backfield. We're already hearing Matt Nagy praising him for his ability as a pass catcher. That bodes positively because that'll allow them to take some of those targets off of Cohen's plate and now distribute them to David Montgomery. I think he figures in as the number one in early down situations, so he's going to lead the team in carries. He's also in a prime spot to be second in that backfield. I still think Cohen leads the backfield in receptions, but second in the backfield in receptions, and certainly an uptick from what they had with Jordan Howard, who had 20 of them last year. So Montgomery is positioned very well to be a sneaky RB2 option. We see rookies often hit the ground running in the NFL and produce for fantasy purposes. Montgomery could be one of those guys this year. Now, I mentioned Cohen. He was 11th in PPR scoring last year, which is pretty surprising when you think about it. I don't think a lot of people expected him to be that high. So I think, he's going to drop off for sure. The question is, where do we value him? And the challenge with these guys, these PPR types who get most of their fantasy points from receptions, not from carries, is that week to week, we may see some fluctuation in production. It's not very consistent. The more carries you have, the higher floor you have on a weekly basis. It's all about touches when it comes to the running back position. So just keep that in mind with Cohen. I think he's more of an RB3, but he has weekly upside. There's going to be some games where he puts up points, but then there's also going to be some games where he disappoints you as well. So keep that in mind with the backfield. Of course, last year we did see Mitchell Trubisky take a step forward under John Fox. We didn't really get much of Trubisky. He was really covered up in that offense. Last year, we saw him slinging the rock. I mean, he had a 6-touchdown game, which is, certainly nothing to bat an eyelash at. And he ends up finishing the season as the number 15 quarterback in fantasy scoring. What you like about Trubisky isn't just the upside as a passer, but he does have some ability as a runner. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he's going to add extra points with his legs. And remember, every 40 rushing yards you get out of your quarterback in most scoring systems, that's the same amount of fantasy points as a passing touchdown, a 4-point passing touchdown, 40 yards rushing, same thing. So Trubisky has that ability. This offense will allow him to do a little bit of that. And he really is set up with a nice surrounding cast. It's maybe not the best in the league, but there's a lot of upside in this group. I mentioned a backfield already. Let's talk about these wide receivers. I know Allen Robinson, a lot of folks were disappointed last year, but he was coming off the ACL, so maybe we give him a pass on that one. I don't think we see Allen Robinson return to his early career numbers, that season in Jacksonville when he had 1,400 yards, 14 receiving touchdowns. That's a massive season. I don't think we see that out of him, but you're able to draft Allen Robinson after the first 25 wide receivers are off the board, and he could very well finish inside of that. Now, not drastically inside, but could he finish as a number 22, 21, 20 wide receiver? Yeah, and you don't have to draft him there. He's the clear number one in this offense. He's going to see his share of the targets. And yes, 55 catches last year is disappointing, but we could certainly see that number go up here with another year with Trubisky progressing, another year in this offense for Allen Robinson. I think he's a nice value, in fact, on draft day. Of course, we also have to give a shout out to Anthony Miller because this kid last year, I was super excited about him coming into the league. Freakish athlete, upside, but he was banged up for a good chunk of his rookie season, and that did put a damper on his overall production. And get this, even with being banged up for basically the entire season, Anthony Miller scored 7 touchdowns last year. I think this guy is, he's budding, not a fantasy superstar, but a budding fantasy option who we're going to be using on a weekly basis throughout his career. He takes another step forward this year. I think you throw a late round dart at Anthony Miller and you won't be disappointed with what you get. And then you have Trey Burton, who last year a lot of people expected to be a breakout player. Now, he didn't break out per se at the position, but he finished 8th among tight ends in fantasy scoring. So it's not a bad season for Trey Burton. And he still is in the driver's seat in an offense that, Andy Reid-inspired offenses are typically very favorable to the tight end. So I wouldn't rule out Trey Burton, again, putting up top 12 fantasy numbers. You're drafting him just outside the top 12 right now as well. So he could return some decent value. He's just not up there with the elites at the position this year, but still an option who you could look at on draft day. You want to see where Trey Burton, David Montgomery, Mitchell Trubisky, Allen Robinson, and the rest of the Bears land in our fantasy rankings. You can check those out and more at PFF.com.